My girlfriend laughed at me when I proposed to her, but then she cried and begged me to come back. All right, here we go. Hello, Reddit. Before I dive in, can I just ask, if you're watching this, please like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This channel doesn't get many views, and most people drop off before the end, so every bit of support means a lot. All right, thanks. Now, let me tell you a little story. It all started at a moving party in Austin. My friend Seth had finally decided to leave his shoebox apartment downtown for something a little more grown-up, and like the good friend I am, I volunteered to help. I figured it'd be a few hours of hauling furniture and maybe a couple of beers after, but it turned into something else entirely. See, Seth's friend Ryan showed up with a coworker named Amanda. She walked in like she belonged there, wearing a black leather jacket over this simple floral dress, laughing at something Ryan said as they stepped inside. I remember thinking right away that she was out of my league, not in some self-pitying way, but just that kind of effortless confidence some people have. I've never been great at making first impressions, especially with women, but somehow, that day, everything just clicked. She asked if I was the one who parked the U-Haul like a drunk octopus trying to do yoga, and instead of being offended, I laughed so hard I snorted beer through my nose. That broke the ice. We ended up spending most of the evening talking. About music, she was deep into obscure indie bands from the Pacific Northwest. Movies, we both had opinions about Nolan films, and cocktails. She made a killer sidecar using whatever was lying around in Seth's chaotic kitchen. By the end of the night, I knew I had to see her again. I texted Seth the next morning like, "Hey, can you send me her number? I swear I'm not going to be weird." He sent it with a winking emoji and a "don't screw it up." Our first date was at a dive bar with live jazz and overpriced fries. It was supposed to be one drink, maybe two, but we ended up closing the place down. After that, we were pretty much inseparable. I don't think either of us said it out loud, but we both knew what this was right away. The next 2 years felt like a montage. Weekend trips to places like Big Bend, New Orleans. That one time we got stuck in a snowstorm in Colorado Springs and had to sleep in the back of a rental SUV. Weeknights were quieter, Netflix, takeout, trying out bad wine, and pretending we knew what notes of plum actually meant. We went to bars with weird themes, took cooking classes that neither of us had the patience for, and somehow kept finding new ways to make each other laugh. I gave her a cat. I mean, not just like, "Hey, here's a cat," but I literally put it in a cardboard box with holes poked in it, tied a ribbon on top, and left it on her doorstep like some kind of feline Amazon package. I watched from across the street as she opened it, and the look on her face. It made every bit of planning worth it. We named him Toby, and he became our little gremlin. He would climb into the bathtub while it was dry and yowl like he was in a Shakespearean tragedy. Amanda taught him to high-five. I taught him to attack my feet when I least expected it. I think what made it work was how easy it all felt. We didn't have to perform for each other. There was no playing it cool, no calculated texting games. Just this natural rhythm, like we'd found a pace that matched. And yet, in the back of my mind, I always had this voice whispering, "Don't screw this up." Because when you meet someone who feels like home, the stakes suddenly feel very, very high. About a year and a half in, we made the big move. It wasn't some grand gesture or a romantic ultimatum, more like a slow build that eventually made sense. We were already spending most nights together, either at her place or mine, and the back and forth started to feel ridiculous. Her toothbrush had long since taken up residence in my bathroom, and half my socks mysteriously migrated to her laundry basket. So one night, after a long dinner and 2 bottles of wine, we just kind of said, why not? A few weeks later, we were unpacking boxes in a small third-floor apartment with awful parking but great light in the mornings. Living together was surprisingly easy. I'd heard horror stories from friends about toothpaste fights, loud chewing, or someone's weird habit of talking to plants. But Amanda and I slipped into the rhythm of cohabitation like we were made for it. She took over the kitchen counters with her endless jars of lentils and tea blends. I claimed a drawer in the hallway for my tools, which she jokingly called my man cave in a drawer. We learned each other's quirks without making them feel like burdens. She needed silence in the mornings. I liked to hum while folding laundry. Somehow it just worked. Around that time, the hints started. At first, they were lighthearted. An Instagram story of a couple getting engaged on a mountain, with the caption "this" and a dozen exclamation points. Then a string of TikToks she'd forward me. Elaborate proposals, dreamy backyard weddings, aesthetic ring videos with indie music and candlelight. Once, she caught me watching football and dropped onto the couch beside me holding up her hand with a grin. "Can you imagine how nice a ring would look right here?" she asked, wiggling her fingers. I laughed, but my stomach tightened just a little. It wasn't pressure, not really. Amanda never demanded anything, but it was clear what she was thinking. She even joked about trying on dresses, throwing it out there in the same breath as asking what we should order for dinner. Casual on the surface, but not random. The thing is, I wanted it too. Maybe not the big wedding part. Honestly, that sounded overwhelming. But the idea of being with her, really building something, that wasn't scary to me. It felt right. I could see the whole thing in my head. Our apartment turning into a house, lazy Sundays turning into late-night diaper changes, growing old with Toby sunbathing on the porch. But I wasn't where I wanted to be financially. I had 3 part-time gigs, mostly contract stuff through an insurance company. Claims processing, policy adjustments, some customer outreach when they needed it. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady, and I picked up as many hours as I could. On good weeks, I barely had time to think. On bad weeks, I'd stare at spreadsheets until my eyes blurred. Still, I started putting money aside. It wasn't much, just a little every week from each paycheck, tucked into a savings account I named Ring and Future, like some corny sitcom husband. I skipped nights out, bought store-brand everything, learned to stretch groceries longer than they probably should have lasted. Every time I hit a milestone, even if it was just $100, I felt like I was moving closer to something real. Amanda never said anything directly. She didn't ask if I was saving or where I stood on the whole proposal thing. But the signs kept coming. Photos liked, friends' weddings commented on, once even walking by a jewelry store and pausing just a little too long at the window. She glanced at me, then looked back at the display, as if she was trying not to make it a moment. I said nothing, just smiled and reached for her hand. It was warm, soft, and steady. Like her. I don't think she knew how hard I was trying. The sacrifices I was making behind the scenes. Or maybe she did, and she just never said it, afraid it would make me feel cornered. But every night when I crawled into bed after logging 12-hour days, every time I pulled up that savings account and saw the numbers crawl up slowly, I thought about her. About us. About the future we were quietly building with every small gesture and unspoken promise. It happened on a Friday night. One of those early spring evenings where the air is just warm enough to wear a jacket, but not cold enough to rush anywhere. I'd been planning it for months, scraping together enough money for the ring, coordinating with her best friend Kayla to get a few close friends to the restaurant without tipping Amanda off, rehearsing my speech in the mirror like an idiot every night after she fell asleep. I even booked Capri's, her favorite Italian spot, this quiet little place with string lights on the patio and tiramisu that she once called almost spiritual. She didn't suspect a thing. I told her we were just going out for dinner, something nice to celebrate me getting a new client contract. She wore this green dress she loved, the one that made her eyes pop, and I remember thinking as we drove there that I couldn't believe how lucky I was. Every red light made my palms sweat. Every turn felt heavier than it should have. I had the ring in a small black box in my coat pocket, and it felt like a brick. Dinner was good. Not great, because I was barely tasting anything. She kept talking, telling me about some ridiculous drama at work, and I nodded and smiled and made the right noises, but all I could think about was how my hands wouldn't stop shaking and if she'd noticed the little bump in my jacket when I leaned forward. She didn't. Or maybe she did, but didn't say anything. The plan was simple. Dessert would come, and then I'd excuse myself to use the restroom. And when I came back, I'd walk around the table, drop to one knee, and ask her to marry me. Kayla and the others were supposed to arrive just after, with champagne and hugs and a quiet little celebration. That was the plan. That's not what happened. When I stood up and stepped away from the table, Amanda smiled and took a sip of wine, completely unaware. I came back a minute later, ring box already in my hand. I walked behind her, then around to her side, and when she looked up, I saw it in her eyes before I even knelt down. This flicker of something, like a light dimming. But I kept going. My knees hit the stone floor harder than I expected. The box clicked open. Her hands froze on the stem of her glass. "Amanda," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I love you more than I know how to put into words. I want to spend my life with you, if you'll let me. Will you marry me?" And then, silence. Not a gasp, not a smile, not tears. Just her looking at me with a face I didn't recognize. Her mouth parted like she was about to say something, but nothing came out. A long pause. Too long. Then she blinked. I need to think," she said, soft but clear. I didn't move. I just stared up at her, still on one knee, trying to understand what I'd just heard. I heard a nervous laugh from the next table. One of the waiters dropped a fork in the distance, the clang oddly loud. Somewhere behind me, someone whispered, "Oh no." Amanda didn't cry. She didn't look angry. She looked removed, like she'd stepped out of the moment and was watching it happen from a distance. I slowly closed the box, stood up, and slid it back into my pocket without saying a word. My hands were damp. My throat felt tight. The string lights above us flickered a little, and suddenly the whole patio felt colder. Neither of us touched the dessert when it came. Kayla and the others showed up about 15 minutes later, all smiles and low cheers, until they saw our faces. Amanda excused herself to the restroom almost immediately, and I just stood there awkwardly with her friends and mine, trying not to show how badly I wanted the ground to open up and swallow me whole. We didn't talk about it that night. We drove home in silence. No music, no small talk, just the sound of tires on pavement and my heart pounding in my ears. The ring stayed in my pocket the whole way home, and I didn't know what to do with the feeling in my chest that something between us had shifted in a way I couldn't name, but could definitely feel. The drive home felt like it lasted hours, even though it was only 20 minutes. Neither of us said much at first. I kept my eyes on the road, gripping the steering wheel tighter than I needed to, while Amanda stared out the window, her arms folded and her expression unreadable. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that fills the car like smoke, slowly suffocating anything comfortable or familiar. I thought maybe she was just overwhelmed, that once we were home we could talk, maybe laugh awkwardly about it, and move forward somehow. But just a few blocks from our place, she broke the silence. "I didn't think it would be that ring," she said quietly, her voice flat, like she was commenting on the weather. I glanced at her, but she wasn't looking at me. I mean, I've kind of been throwing in references to Tiffany's for months. I blinked. I wasn't sure I'd heard her right. "I saved for that ring," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "I really tried." "I know," she replied, quickly, like she wanted to acknowledge it but didn't want to linger. "It's just not what I pictured, I guess." "And the restaurant?" She gave a short laugh that didn't sound amused. "Capri's? I mean, it's nice, but it's not exactly romantic." I felt my chest tighten. Not out of anger, not even hurt, just something heavier, duller. I kept my mouth shut for a few seconds because I didn't trust what might come out if I spoke too fast. "I thought it was your favorite," I finally said. "It was," she said, shrugging. "I don't know. Maybe I've changed." The rest of the ride was silent again. I stared ahead, streetlights flashing rhythmically across the windshield, my thoughts loud and messy. I tried to tell myself not to take it personally, that maybe she was caught off guard, that maybe she was just sorting through her own feelings. But no matter how much I tried to be understanding, something inside me felt like it had fractured a little. When we got home, she went straight to the bedroom. I stood in the kitchen for a while, just leaning against the counter, trying to breathe through the noise in my head. I didn't follow her. I didn't ask for a conversation. I didn't know what I'd even say at that point. The couch wasn't unfamiliar. I'd fallen asleep there plenty of times watching TV, but that night it felt like exile. I grabbed a blanket from the hallway closet and lay down without changing, my dress shirt still tucked in, belt still digging into my side. Toby jumped up a few minutes later. He circled once on my chest, his warm little body a small comfort in a night that had gone cold. He started purring almost immediately, curling up under my chin like nothing was wrong, like everything was exactly the way it was supposed to be. I stared at the ceiling while the room filled with the soft hum of his breathing. I ran my hand slowly down his back, over the familiar stripes, and tried not to think too hard about what had just happened. But I couldn't stop replaying it. Her voice, her face, the way the whole moment had deflated before it ever had a chance to become something good. I wasn't angry. I wish I had been. Anger might have given me something solid to hold on to. But all I felt was disappointment. Not just in how it turned out, but in the way it made everything that came before it feel suddenly uncertain. All that saving, all that planning, all that quiet hope. It just sat there now, heavy and unacknowledged, while she slept in our bed, and I tried to fall asleep on the couch with a cat purring on my chest and a knot in my stomach I couldn't begin to untangle. The next week felt like being stuck in a dream where something's wrong, but no one will say it out loud. Amanda didn't bring up the proposal again. Not once. No conversation, no apology, no follow-up. She just slipped right back into our routine like nothing had happened. It was like that night at Capri's had been a glitch in the system that she'd chosen to ignore. She still made coffee in the mornings, still asked me to pick up oat milk on the way home, still watched shows with me on the couch like we were fine. But the energy was off, too smooth, too rehearsed, like she was acting in a version of our relationship instead of actually living in it. What started to get to me wasn't just the silence. It was the way little things started piling up. Her phone, for one. It was never face-up anymore. Always screen down on the table, even when she was alone with me. She used to scroll while we watched TV, laughing at dumb memes, or sending me TikToks from the other side of the couch. Now it stayed silent. Once, I walked past her while she was texting, and she locked the screen so fast it was like muscle memory. Then there were the work meetings. She started having more of them, suddenly, and always in the evenings. Amanda worked for a small events company. Nothing that ever really required late nights, at least not without advance notice. But now, she'd throw on makeup after dinner and say, "I've got to meet a vendor," or last-minute planning thing. won't be late, and be out the door before I could ask who, what, or where. No details, no receipts, just vagueness, wrapped in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And then came Gavin. I noticed the name on her phone one night when I passed by her side of the bed and saw a banner notification light up. Gavin with a champagne glass emoji. I didn't say anything right away. Maybe it was a coworker. Maybe I was reading too much into it. But something about it felt off. We'd been together long enough that I knew the names of the people in her life. Friends, coworkers, clients. I'd never heard of a Gavin. Not once. After the third night in a row of last-minute meetings, I finally asked. We were sitting in the living room. She was halfway through a glass of wine, scrolling on her phone, screen turned away from me like always. I cleared my throat and said, as calmly as I could, "Hey, is everything okay with us?" She didn't look up. Why wouldn't it be? I waited a second, then said, "I don't know. Things feel different. You've been gone a lot, and there's someone named Gavin texting you a lot." That got her attention. Her eyes snapped up from her screen, sharp and defensive. "Are you checking my phone now?" "No," I said quickly. "I just saw the name pop up. I'm not accusing you of anything. Something feels off. That's all." She rolled her eyes and took a sip of wine. "You're paranoid." It was the way she said it. Not like she was frustrated or hurt, just bored. Like my concern was something she'd already decided didn't matter. I didn't push back. I wanted to, but I could already feel the walls going up, and I knew that anything I said past that point would just be met with more of the same. She went to bed early that night. I sat on the couch with Toby curled up next to me, trying to convince myself that I was overthinking everything, that she was just stressed or maybe needed space after the proposal. But the feeling in my gut didn't go away. If anything, it grew louder. It wasn't just the silence anymore. It was what she was doing with it. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind where nothing stands out, leftovers for dinner, the usual back and forth about whether to start a new show or rewatch something old, and her slipping away to take a shower while I sat on the couch with Toby draped over my legs. Her phone lit up on the coffee table. Normally, I wouldn't even glance. I never needed to. But the screen lit up with a name that had been buzzing in the back of my mind for over a week, and something about the timing made my stomach twist. Gavin. The champagne emoji was still there, like a little middle finger. The message read, "Can't wait for Saturday." That was it. No context. No reason for a coworker to send that late at night. No project Amanda had mentioned. No event I could connect it to. Just 7 words that hit me harder than I expected. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. I just sat there staring at it until the screen dimmed, trying to slow my breathing, trying to stop my brain from running in every direction at once. Saturday. What the hell was Saturday? She came out of the shower 10 minutes later, wrapped in a towel, hair wet, humming to herself like nothing was wrong. She saw me sitting there, asked if I wanted tea, and I said yes because I needed a second to pull my face together. When I finally brought it up, I didn't do it the way I thought I would. No accusations, no dramatic, "Who is he?" No raised voice. I waited until she was curled up on the other end of the couch, half watching the TV. "So, I've been thinking," I said casually, "about the ring." She glanced over. "Yeah, I get it," I continued, keeping my tone calm. "It wasn't what you pictured. We could go look together. You can pick something you actually want." Her expression softened instantly. She smiled. "Really? You'd be okay with that?" "Of course," I said. "It's important to me that you love it." She leaned over and kissed my cheek, murmured something like, "You're sweet," then turned her attention back to the screen, completely unaware of what I'd just filed away in my head. Because the second she mentioned Saturday, I asked, "Big plans?" She shrugged. "Just lunch with some people from work. Gavin's organizing it." I nodded slowly, watching her carefully. "Sounds fun." "Yeah," she said, smiling faintly. "He's new. Still getting to know everyone." I said nothing more. Just let it hang there, pretending I accepted the answer, pretending it didn't sting. But inside, something had shifted. She thought I was stupid. She thought I wouldn't notice the way she'd started guarding her phone like it was made of secrets. She thought I'd hear "lunch with the team" and forget the message that popped up while she was out of the room. But I'd seen it. I'd seen what she didn't mean for me to see. And I wasn't going to let it go. That night, while she slept peacefully in our bed, I lay wide awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling with Toby curled against my feet. My mind was already turning, quiet, focused, and sharper than it had been in weeks. She could keep playing pretend if she wanted, but I was done pretending not to see. It was a Friday morning, and I was covering a shift at the coffee shop downtown, one of my side gigs that helped keep the lights on while I juggled contracts from the insurance company. It was a small place, tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner, mostly regulars, quiet music, the occasional laptop crowd. Amanda had never been there. She didn't even know I worked that location sometimes. We usually kept our lives separate when it came to my odd jobs. She always saw them as temporary hustles, never real. I was behind the counter restocking the pastry display when I heard the door chime. I didn't even look up at first. Just assumed it was another early customer grabbing a latte on their way to the office. I was halfway through restacking croissants when her voice hit me. Clear as day, sharp and familiar. "Oh my God, no. He actually offered to change the ring," she said, laughing. I froze, crouched behind the glass case, my heart thudding in my ears. "I didn't even have to ask," she continued. "He was all like, 'Let's pick one together, whatever you want.'" Another laugh, louder this time. "Mark will do anything to keep me." My body locked up. I stayed down, silent, shielded by the counter, but close enough to hear every word. She was with someone, Tina, I realized. I hadn't seen her much, but I recognized the voice. Tina sounded hesitant, quieter. Amanda, meanwhile, kept going, her voice too casual, too light. "I mean, let's be real. I'll say yes to the proposal. Let him believe everything's perfect. Then in a couple months, I'll break it off. Gavin is worth a little patience." My mouth went dry. The words didn't even register all at once. It was like my brain couldn't fully process what I'd just heard. "I just need to play the part a little longer," she added. "He's too easy to manage. He's like, comfortable. Like warm laundry. But Gavin, that man is fire." Tina didn't respond right away. When she finally did, her voice was strained. "Amanda, are you serious? That's messed up." Amanda laughed again, not mean exactly, but amused, like Tina just didn't get it. "It's not like I'm ruining his life. He'll be fine. I'm giving him what he wants for now. It's harmless." Harmless. I felt like someone had gut-punched me. I stayed crouched behind the counter, gripping the edge of the pastry shelf, trying to stay still, trying not to make a sound. I didn't know if anyone else in the shop was listening, but no one said anything. The noise of the espresso machine masked most of the background conversation, but her voice cut through it anyway. Bright, cruel, unshaken. I didn't move until they left. Amanda never saw me. Never noticed that her comfortable fiancé was 5 feet away, listening to her talk about how disposable he was. When the door shut behind them, I stood up slowly, feeling like I was underwater. I leaned back against the sink, staring at the floor, heart pounding, stomach twisting, my hands shaking in a way I hadn't felt since the night I proposed. Toby had curled up on my chest the night before, purring while I told myself to hang in there. That I just needed a little more time, a little more clarity, a little more proof. Now I had it, and it hit harder than I ever imagined. I didn't go home and explode. I didn't throw her things out the window or confront her in the middle of the night or show her what I'd overheard in that coffee shop. I didn't do any of the things the rage in my chest wanted me to do. Instead, I smiled. When I got home that night, I kissed her on the cheek. I asked how her day was. I told her I'd been thinking about wedding venues, something small, maybe outdoors. She looked pleased, almost smug, like she had me wrapped around her finger tighter than ever. I let her believe it. From that moment on, I made it my job to play the role of the perfect fiancé. I asked questions about rings, sent her Pinterest boards full of floral arrangements and mood lighting, cooked her dinner more often, left little notes on her pillow like I used to back when we first moved in together. She didn't notice anything strange because she didn't think she needed to. She thought I was blind. She thought she had time. I used that time well. The first thing I did was reissue my phone account. I'd been on a shared plan. Dumb, I know, but I moved everything under my own name. I started backing up my texts, every call log, every shared photo and voicemail. Then I bought a cheap burner phone and began taking screenshots of Amanda's notifications whenever she left her phone unattended. She was careless when she got too comfortable. Messages from Gavin kept popping up. I took pictures of everyone I could. Some of them were vague, but others were more revealing. There was one that just said, "Hotel booked. Same place as last time." Another with a photo of a wine bottle and the words "for Saturday. Can't wait to have you to myself." All of it time-stamped, all of it saved. Then I did some digging. I found Gavin's last name through her work staff page. It didn't take long to find his LinkedIn, then his Facebook. He was her boss. That part wasn't shocking. What caught my attention was the ring on his finger in every photo, the wife tagged in birthday posts, the family trip to Breckenridge 3 months ago. His social media was practically a gallery of marital bliss. I cross-checked public records. No divorce filing. No separation notice. No movement at all. Amanda's "he's leaving her" fantasy was exactly that, a fantasy. He was still fully married, still living with his wife and their 2 kids in a 4-bedroom colonial on the west side. I even drove by once, just to make sure. Lights on. Cars in the driveway. Happy family. So I started preparing my own exit. I opened a separate bank account, quietly funneled a portion of every paycheck into it. I found a small 1-bedroom across town and signed a lease under a name she wouldn't recognize, just a middle name and an old email address. I moved essentials little by little, my documents, some clothes, backups of important files, personal keepsakes she never noticed missing. The goal wasn't just to leave. It was to leave clean. I didn't want to fight. I wanted her to underestimate me, right up to the moment I was gone. So I stayed in character. I told her I loved her more. I played along with the wedding talk. I even let her try on rings at a boutique one weekend, standing behind her with my hands on her shoulders like I was the luckiest guy alive. But every night, when she left for another vendor meeting, I added to my file. Dates, times, screen captures, voice memos, anything that could build a timeline. I wasn't going to just walk away with a broken heart. I was going to walk away with the truth in my pocket. She thought I was asleep. She thought I was holding on. She didn't know I was already letting go. We went ring shopping on a sunny Saturday, the kind of day where everything looks like it belongs in a commercial, blue sky, perfect breeze, Amanda in a light sundress, practically glowing. She led the way, bouncing from one display case to the next, fingers grazing over diamonds like she was already imagining them on her hand in every photo we'd ever take. When the saleswoman asked what she had in mind, Amanda didn't hesitate. She pointed at the most expensive ring in the case. $14,000. Cushion cut, platinum band, halo setting. It sparkled like a lie told beautifully. I didn't flinch. You deserve the best, I said, looking right at her. Her eyes lit up. I swear, I hadn't seen her that happy in months. Not since the beginning. Not since before Gavin. She kissed me outside the store like we were living in some fairy tale. I kissed her back with the same smile I'd practiced in the mirror. Behind my eyes, all I saw were screenshots, saved voicemails, and a folder on my desktop named insurance. Over the next 2 weeks, I built the perfect second proposal. Amanda had no idea I'd even been working on it. I told her I wanted it to be a surprise this time, something just for her, no more restaurant mishaps or ring confusion. She loved that idea. She said it made her feel seen. I said I was learning. She said she was proud of me. I swallowed the bitterness and thanked her. I rented the rooftop of a luxury restaurant overlooking the lake. High-rise views, private chef, candlelit perimeter. I coordinated the whole thing through one of my clients at the insurance firm who owed me a favor. Amanda's favorite music would be playing. I had custom champagne flutes etched with our initials. I even hired a photographer to coincidentally be there. All of it was real, except none of it was meant to be. I invited our friends. Her friends. My parents. Her coworkers. I made it sound like the big do-over, the moment to redeem myself, to really show Amanda how serious I was. She ate it up, told everyone who would listen that this time felt different, that it was finally happening the way it was meant to. I didn't tell anyone what it was really for. I watched her float through those days like a bride already counting down, giddy with the attention, basking in compliments about how lucky she was. She wore the fake happiness like a second skin. She never once asked about the deposit, or the logistics, or the budget. She didn't care. She just knew she'd won. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that every flower, every twinkle light, every flute of champagne was a stage, a backdrop for the truth. She thought she was walking into a proposal. She had no idea she was walking into a reveal. She told me about the trip a week before the proposal. Said it was a last-minute marketing conference in Miami, something her company was sending her to with only a few days' notice. She gave me the whole rundown over dinner, panels, networking events, a hotel booked by the company, the usual. She even mentioned she'd probably be too busy for sightseeing. It sounded rehearsed. I looked up from my plate and said, "That sounds fun. Maybe I could tag along. We could make a weekend of it." That was when her fork froze halfway to her mouth. She laughed, but it was delayed. Just a half second too long. "Oh, I don't think I can get you into anything. It's super industry specific, and everything's really tight this year." Her eyes darted just a little, and for that 1 second, she wasn't Amanda, the woman I loved. She was Amanda, the woman covering something. And I already knew exactly what. Gavin. I had confirmed it days earlier. A coworker of hers mentioned the same dates, but didn't know anything about a conference. And Gavin? He was conveniently out of office that same weekend, according to his company's auto-reply. The timing was perfect for them. A weekend away, palm trees and hotel rooms, no questions asked. I didn't argue. I just smiled, said, "Of course, that makes sense," and offered to drive her to the airport. She hugged me extra tight before she left, probably out of guilt. Or fear. Maybe both. The second her plane took off, I got to work. I already had most of my things out of the apartment. Over the past month, I'd been moving piece by piece into the new place across town. Just a few boxes left in the closet, some drawers, and of course, Toby. He rode shotgun in his carrier, quiet as always, just blinking at me through the mesh like he knew something was up. I didn't take everything. I left the ring box. I left the mood boards. I left the champagne flutes and the fake guest list for the fake wedding. I left everything that made it look like I was still all in. Then I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up the message draft I'd been working on for weeks. Rachel, Gavin's wife. Found her through his Facebook page. Her profile was locked down, but her name was easy to trace. Event photos, school fundraisers, a tag post from a family friend. One quiet message was all it took. I told her who I was. I told her I had something she needed to see. I didn't rant, I didn't accuse. I just laid it out, clear and simple. Dates, screenshots, times Amanda had been working late, while she and Gavin were checking into hotel rooms across the city. I offered to send anything she wanted. Photos, texts, locations. Then I hit send. And just like that, the last piece fell into place. The apartment was empty, Toby was safe, Rachel was informed. All that was left now was to wait. Rachel responded within an hour. Her first message was short. Can we talk? I gave her my number, and 10 minutes later, we were on the phone. Her voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that only comes from someone who's been carrying suspicion in silence for a long time. She wasn't surprised, not really. Shocked by the detail maybe, but not by the truth. She said she'd had a feeling something wasn't right. Gavin had been pulling away for months, same patterns, late nights, last-minute business travel, new cologne, a distance she couldn't close. She thought it was just a phase. Then she saw the name Amanda in his phone a few times, shrugged it off. I trusted him, she said. That was my mistake. But she didn't cry. She didn't spiral. She asked questions. Specific ones. Dates, names, places. I gave her everything I had. In return, she gave me more than I could have asked for. Rachel was meticulous. A planner. The type of person who doesn't react, they respond. By the next morning, she had dug up old text threads from Gavin's backup sync, documents from their shared financial accounts, hotel bills, a pair of airline tickets to Miami billed to their joint card, even a screenshot of his GPS history that showed his phone location pinging near Amanda's apartment more than once. She sent me the receipts, one by one. Every message between him and Amanda, every dinner charge, every lie wrapped in, I love yous, sent behind her back. There was even one where Amanda wrote, soon I won't have to fake anything anymore. We both knew exactly when soon was supposed to be, so we planned the end together. Rachel went to her lawyer and filed for divorce. Quietly. No announcement, no warnings. She also filed to temporarily freeze and withdraw a large portion of their shared savings into a separate account under her name. Perfectly legal, she told me, thanks to the terms of their prenup. Gavin had no clue. She printed everything, text messages, hotel invoices, screenshots, bank statements, and compiled it into a neat, stapled folder. No dramatics, just cold, irrefutable evidence. She scheduled for it to be delivered by courier directly to Gavin, exactly 1 hour before the rooftop proposal Amanda thought she was getting. I handled the rest. The venue was still booked, the guests still invited. Amanda still thought she was walking into a night she'd remember for the rest of her life, and she wasn't wrong. Just not for the reasons she imagined. Rachel and I weren't doing this for revenge. Not exactly. We were doing it for clarity, for closure, for the simple satisfaction of letting them both stand in the wreckage they built with their lies. The clock was ticking, and the last act was about to begin. The night arrived like a scene from a movie Amanda would have loved. Warm spring air, golden lights strung across the rooftop, soft music playing over the speakers, champagne glasses lined up on silver trays. Everyone was there, her parents, her sister, co-workers, college friends, even her old dance instructor from high school. They were all dressed for celebration, expecting tears of joy and a ring moment to post online. Everyone smiling, laughing, waiting for the fairy tale. Amanda walked in like she owned the night. New dress, high heels clicking confidently against the tile, her hair done up in loose curls that caught the light. She beamed when she saw the crowd, gave a mock surprised gasp, then turned toward me, eyes already shining. You did all this? She asked, like she couldn't believe it. I did, I said, steady as a heartbeat. She came to my side, slipped her arm around mine, and whispered, I'm ready. I nodded once and stepped away. The lights dimmed. A low murmur swept across the crowd. The screen on the far wall flickered to life. Amanda turned, confused, still smiling, until the first slide appeared. A message, hotels booked. Same place as last time. Can't wait to finally have you to myself. Her voice cracked from across the room. What is this? Slide 2. A screenshot of her chat with Gavin. Timestamped, explicit, undeniable. Slide 3. Credit card charges for the Miami trip. Slide 4. A photo of them, taken by someone else, walking through a hotel lobby with sunglasses and coffee, her hand on his back. What the hell is this? She said louder, stepping toward me, her smile now gone, replaced by panic. Mark, stop it. I didn't move. She turned toward the screen. Turn it off, she yelled to no one in particular, voice rising. This isn't funny. But the slideshow rolled on. The texts kept coming, the evidence mounting. Her parents stood frozen. Her sister covered her mouth. A friend in the back started to whisper, then stopped. Then came the final moment. Rachel stepped into the room. Amanda's face drained of color. You've got to be kidding me, she muttered, backing up. Rachel walked slowly toward the front, cool and composed in a black dress, heels silent on the floor. She didn't look at Amanda. She didn't look at anyone. She just walked to the screen, dropped a sealed envelope on the table, and said, Your fiancé isn't the only one who deserves the truth. Amanda lunged toward the projector, trying to pull the plug, but one of the staff blocked her gently. Don't, I said quietly. You're already done. The room was silent except for the sound of one last notification. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She pulled it out with shaking hands, glanced down, and for a moment, her face twisted in a way I'd never seen. Gavin, I got kicked out of the house. I can't come to you. Everything's falling apart. She didn't say a word. She just stared at the screen, then at me, then back at her phone. Her voice was barely above a whisper when she said it. Angry, raw, desperate. I never loved you. I nodded slowly. I know. And then I walked away. It happened a week after everything came crashing down. I was in my new apartment, small but clean, sunlight pouring in through the half-open blinds. Toby was curled up on the windowsill, purring like a motorboat, chasing dust particles with his eyes. I had coffee in one hand and my phone in the other, scrolling through restaurants for later that night. I had a date with someone who actually saw me. Rachel. Yeah, that Rachel. The woman who didn't flinch when the world cracked open. The woman who didn't fake anything, who had every reason to fall apart, but chose to stand tall instead. The past few days had been unexpectedly simple with her. Honest, direct, free of games. We'd talked for hours, not about them, not always, but about what it meant to move forward when you'd spent so long walking in circles. It was early, but something about it felt real in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Then the intercom buzzed. At first I thought it was the delivery guy, but then I heard her voice. Mark. Amanda's voice crackled through the speaker, sharp, high-pitched, already trembling. Mark, open the door, please. I ruined everything. He dumped me. He's not leaving his wife. It was all a lie. I stood frozen for a second, coffee halfway to my lips. I love you, she screamed. I was stupid, okay? I get it. I messed up. Please, just let me in. The building's intercom was loud, too loud, and I could already hear movement from the hallway outside, doors cracking open, footsteps pausing. She was still yelling, full meltdown mode now. I looked out the window and saw her standing down there in a black hoodie, mascara streaked under her eyes, spinning in circles like she didn't know whether to cry or scream again. A neighbor's voice drifted up from the second floor. I'm calling the police if she doesn't shut up. I sighed, walked over to the intercom, and pressed the button. This is no longer my home for you, I said. Calm, clear, final. I didn't wait for her response. I didn't need to. I turned away, walked back to my kitchen, set down my coffee, and scratched behind Toby's ears. He stretched, blinked at me, and let out a slow, happy purr. The city outside moved on, completely indifferent to the noise that had just passed. And so did I. The pain had already burned off. The weight was gone. And for the first time in a long time, the silence felt good. So what do you all think? Would you have played it differently? Would you have confronted her right away, or done the same thing I did? Do you think exposing someone like that is fair, or is it too much? I want to hear your take. Drop your thoughts below. What would you have done if you were in my shoes?